In today's episode of Flow Talks, we have Poppy with us, and we will get into UI, UX, and how HubSpot nails user interface and user experience. Before we begin, just a quick brief back about Flow Talks, why we started, what was our vision. So we began Flow Talks to address common pain points within sales, marketing, customer success, RevOps, all things go to market, and bring our in house experts to talk about the latest strategies. So, as I said, again, today we have Poppy as our UI UX expert. Thank you for being here.
That's
Uh,
cool.
before
Thanks for having me.
before we begin, in my like as an individual and as per the conversations I've heard about UI UX, they are used interchangeably all the time. So there's like even with me, I've been a little confused about the difference between what is UI, what is exactly UX. So let's just first get started with what are they and what exactly is the difference.
Yeah, totally. No, you're right that people use them interchangeably. Um, they split in two ways. So I guess you could call more of the scientific version, and then UX is more of the sort of the psychology and broader understanding of how people use things. So to
Mhm.
be more specific, UI user interface is the physical thing that you're looking at. So
Mm.
it's the button right in front of you, it's the navigation at the top, the search bar, all the features on the page and how you use it. UX is everything that comes before that when you're looking at it and after. It's more of an understanding of how and why people use things. And so user experience, their whole experience on the website, and that can be informed by the context of your brand and your product, and then
Mhm.
also by the user themselves. So, are they someone who's tech savvy? Are they someone who's disabled? Are they someone who is likely to have three kids running around and screaming at them so they don't have 10 hours to read your page? That kind of thing. So, that's the big difference. UI is what you're looking at, UX is everything around what you're looking at.
Those were some really great examples. So, would you would you actually think that UI is like a part of the greater like sphere of UX?
Yes, yeah, definitely. UI is one of the disciplines in UX.
Okay, sounds good. And since we touched on that, would there what would be like if you had to briefly pinpoint some principles of UX, what would that be?
Yeah. So UX is sort of the intersection of design, marketing, development, and accessibility. So it has a lot of principles around all of those things, all focusing on how in all of those disciplines you can meet the needs of the user. So the first big principle around UX is to just focus on the user. I know we all need to make money, we need to get people to purchase products. And there are examples of companies who kind of use UX to trick customers or convince them to do certain things. But you'd argue that's not true UX. UX is all about focusing on the customer. So there's focusing on the user, the hierarchy of pages, so the order that you go through experiences is quite a large area of UX, like presenting the right information at the right time, and the right volume of options, and then also making it easy to use. So making buttons really clear, making your text really easy to read, all of these things kind of apply to UX in and all contribute to a good experience versus a bad experience.
So, listening to all that, as like being a HubSpot user and Info, we are like a HubSpot elite partner. I find a lot of similarities as a user that I do see those principles within HubSpot. So, what do you have to think about? Like, what do you have to say about that? How do you think that HubSpot nails these UX principles?
Yeah, HubSpot I would say does have a pretty good UX compared to some other CRMs. One thing is it has really good performance, which essentially just means that it's quick. So it's easy to use. When you click a button, you get what you need, which means that your experiences are fast, you're getting the information you need quickly and not becoming impatient, and the system isn't cumbersome. It's and it's also I would say really intuitive to use as you get used to its hierarchy and its interface. So it uses very similar page templates the whole way through the system. One really good example is how the create button is always in the top right, like the little orange button. So you develop that muscle memory over time to
Correct. You
just, if
always
you want
keep
to
going
create,
there.
yeah, that kind of thing. Um, HubSpot also has a good visual hierarchy on pages. So a good example would be the record index page. So when you're looking at all of your contacts, your companies, or your deals, it comes in, you've got the title, and then you have got your filters. So straight away, it's because past your filters, you'll then be presented with tons of information, which doesn't really mean anything if you're just looking at thousands and thousands of records. And so instead, it says, here's the title of where you are on the site. Now, here are the filters to prompt you to do something with the data so that you don't overwhelm yourself. You are here to extrapolate specific information, create a specific list, look at your customers versus someone else's. So that's a really good example of one of the UX, the principles that it nails. Um, and then, yeah, it's definitely across the whole platform. It has just lots of little areas of user delight. So one would be when you're on a specific tool or a page and you click settings in the top right, it will take you to the settings of that page instead of the overall
Correct.
settings,
Yeah.
which is, yeah, it's something that's so quick that I remember that that feature actually had to dawn on me because I didn't even click that it was taking me to the settings of that page because it felt so natural. And so that's just an example how it's thinking about the user's experience. You're not having to click settings and then go to the area you want to find. It's just instantly taking you there. And those little moments of delight are just sprinkled the whole way through HubSpot to make the whole process easier and quicker and easier to learn.
Especially that last example you gave. When I initially started using HubSpot and I would ever go to the settings, um, I never really realized that I was going to the settings of that exact page. I felt like it was just default. It took me like a couple weeks to realize that if I was on, say, deals, and like I'm on the deals section of HubSpot and I'm going hitting settings on that page, I'm immediately going to the deals part of settings. I don't have to navigate through settings myself. So
Yeah,
that
exactly.
that definitely is a pretty cool thing to have, which I don't think people realize.
Yeah, it's good. It's quite funny because when you become really used to it, you don't learn the actual navigation of the settings. So then when you have to navigate it yourself, you're suddenly thinking, oh God, where is this? But then in the settings, they have a really good hierarchy of breaking the settings down by each hub so you can find them. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's a great feature to avoid that learning curve of where things are in the system. You are just instantly delivered at the place that you want to be.
I agree. I'll just step aside from HubSpot for 1 second,
Mhm.
and if like based on your experience with clients and your own individual experience or things you've seen here at Six and Flow, um, what are some of the really common examples you've seen of poor UI or UX design that you think that severely impacts user experience?
Mm. Um, One mistake that software or brands often make is wanting to give the user everything at once. Like, we want to give you options. We want you to be able to do all the things that you want to do from one view. But doing that actually makes it impossible to find what you need or to make a decision because you're just presented with too much. So I think being flooded with information is quite poor UX. And it's difficult as a business to make a decision on what to prioritize and what to show to the user. But that's where user research comes in, which, when you asked before about how UI and UX sit together, UX is the parent, there's UI, and then user research would be another discipline within there. So you have to research with users to find what they want to see. So being flooded with information. And then another one is as people use systems and they build new templates and new views, um, you can develop different templates in your system. So how we talked before about how you have the title here and the button up in the corner, people might end up building experiences where the button moves down here for that set of templates. And then they think, oh, in next week, I'll go update my old templates, but then they never do. So then as you're going through the experience, through your login page to your information page to your settings, you're getting information in different places and it's jarring your brain and making you think unnecessarily hard to find what you need to find on the page.
Yeah, that's really not consistent.
Mm, yeah, it can be a real pain. And then I think the third kind of common example I see is missing prompts for the user. So, um, like when you're on a page and say, yeah, a really common one would be how your main CTA should be a contrasting color to everything else you're using. So that top CTA needs to be like bright orange in HubSpot's case, or if all of your branding is orange, you want it to be bright blue, something that contrasts. So when people forget to put those little guiding hints in. It might be an icon or it might be a little call out card with information about what the thing is, or breaking down the experience to just give you one task at a time. Um, if, yeah, there aren't those prompts for how to move through the experience, you're just supposed to figure it out yourself. I'd say that that's usually poor UX.
Yeah. For a second, I'll go back to the flooded with information point you just mentioned. I
Hmm.
have been guilty of that. Just recently, within within our internal team, it was like we brought up our like content marketing, and I realized that I don't tend to sometimes look at customer journey holistically.
Hmm.
Like I don't figure out like when I'm building my content strategy, it's possible that sometimes I miss out that okay, this persona would probably just need this information and this persona would probably just need that information. Instead, I would probably be like, okay, how about I just give everything to everybody? It's never too bad to have all the information, but it is because if it's not specific, if it's not targeted, it really affects like the whole user experience of that person.
Yeah.
Um, so
And you
I
can just, what you can do with that is you just want to partition and
yes.
separate out your content so everything's available if they want to go searching for it, but present them so if you're thinking about a technical director versus an intern or something. Intern, you're going to want to have your 101s, like the most basic stuff. Technical director, you're going to want to have more technical stuff, but with a business side to it. And then you just have filters and just areas where people can go find that other information if they want. But in terms of those priority cards or boxes that you're showing on the page, you put in the content relevant for that user. So they feel like you're reading their mind and you understand what they want to see.
Yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, on to my next question. I'm gonna
Oh,
go back to HubSpot now.
okay.
Uh, so being like in comparison with other CRM platforms, how do you think that HubSpot's UI and UX stands out?
Cool. So with HubSpot, so we talked before about the kind of the consistent interfaces. And there's a principle called the aesthetic usability effect. And this essentially means that anything that looks pretty, we perceive to be easier to use. And there's one of the good points of HubSpot that because it has quite modern, I would say quite a fun brand image. Like it uses quite curly text and it's got warm colors as opposed to the cooler tones that some other CRMs use. I feel like it stands out of in terms of people who are new coming to the platform expecting it to be easy to use because it looks pretty. It also has, so in the back end of HubSpot, you can see a visualization of the data model. So that's another really good tool in HubSpot. It's often CRMs can kind of lock down how they work because they don't want to flood you with that information, which is good. But sometimes you need to understand how the system works if you're going to extend it, but in a way that isn't complex developer level API documentation or data models. HubSpot has a really simple visualization of their data model to show you how objects relate to each other and can pass information. So that's really great for helping users understand how the system works. Um, and then again, similar to what we said before about guiding people through the process, HubSpot just has loads of moments where there are little call out cards and little descriptions. Two examples would probably be when you're importing content into HubSpot, instead of giving you a big long list of actions to do to import the file, it gives you a page with one task. You say, I am importing this type of file. You click next, it says, okay, which objects are on the file? You click those, it says next. Okay, put your file in, next. Okay, now you're going to map your properties. So it's something that to someone who's new is actually quite a technical process, but just breaks it down for you and makes it really easy. So that's really nice. And then so AI in platforms is quite a controversial topic and how they use it. But one way that they've then extended that focus that they have on guiding people through processes is when you're creating reports and assets like that, they have an AI tool to generate the description, which we're all guilty of not writing descriptions because it's
It's
confusing and it's
easier.
hard to, yeah, it's hard to be concise. It's really difficult to summarize exactly what that report does in a way that makes sense to other people because
Right.
we also have all have our own ways of speaking. Um, so HubSpot's made it easy for you. You just click the button, and the descriptions I would say are really reliable for the report
Yeah.
descriptions. Like I am really happy to use those all the time. And so therefore, even when HubSpot can't guide you through the process, it's now giving you the tools to guide your colleagues through the process, which is really
Mhm.
great to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Um,
There is one thing that HubSpot's kind of shifting on in terms of how it stands out, possibly to the more negative level, but I think that it's doing what it can to avoid that, is as HubSpot's releasing all these new features, it released the Content Hub more recently, so separated out Marketing Hub, and now it's got these separate content tools,
yeah.
more sales tools all the time. Like the goals area had an update. I know lead scoring areas in beta at the moment, so you're ending up with decision paralysis on where to go in the platform, which is also known as Hick's law in UX principles.
Mhm.
Um, but I think HubSpot's doing really good to mitigate this with the new navigation it launched to sort of make it easier to find all these different features. But that means that we have to take onboarding and training quite seriously to avoid flooding users with all of these different features
Yeah.
that they could use and help them slowly learn and add to their arsenal of tools in their sales and marketing process.
I agree, especially when you're just starting off like from a client's perspective, they may not know everything about HubSpot. They could be just starting fresh, and HubSpot is all inclusive. It has so much, and with s- these many changes coming like every now and then, like as you said, the content hub coming in, the marketing hub getting separated, the product features that just like keep rolling every now and then, it can get really overwhelming for somebody who's just starting fresh at HubSpot. So from that perspective, how do you take that into account when like you're like we at Six and Flow when we train our clients to use HubSpot? And how do you think HubSpot's UX helps you with that, like the whole onboarding process?
Yeah, on onboarding. So I can break that down into two separate things again. There's the training an onboarding aspect, and then there's also the kind of the setup and the normalization of their account and their profile and what they see.
Mhm.
Um, so in terms of training and onboarding, we typically, depending on the client, we might do a walkthrough of the whole platform just to give you the context. What is possible? There's a lot here. It's okay if you don't understand it or you don't know how to use it, but it exists. So they know that they have the potential of using these tools. And then we'll do subsequent sessions where we'll break it down by the type of user.
Mhm.
So to give you the most simple version would be sales users teaching them only Sales Hub, marketing users teaching them only Marketing Hub. Because sometimes clients will say, oh, but we're paying for this whole tool, so we want everybody to understand everything so that we can have great sales and marketing alignment.
Correct.
But what you actually end up doing is you just water down that understanding of the platform. And then you also get people who think that they understand every section and so then don't ask for help and don't collaborate with their colleagues. Meanwhile, if you split them into marketing learn marketing, but have an understanding of sales, sales know sales, but have an understanding of marketing, they're then able to say, hey, I know that you have that feature that you guys use in marketing. Can you help me use it or can you set something up for me? And then you can develop these experts and these advocates in your team who are really good at the tools that they use and are able to work with everyone else as they're onboarded and trained, which, yeah, that would be a good way that we use, that we kind of break down the training and provide a good UX throughout HubSpot onboarding.
Yeah.
Um, the other side to that would then be the normalization of the account.
Mhm.
So this is more in how we set up the account in the first place. So we like to understand what they used beforehand. So if that has a completely different data structure, we want to understand that data structure and then our data, HubSpot's data structure, and where the parallels are and the change in terminology. And so we get them ready early. If they're used to calling companies organizations, we need to say, hey, in this new system, you're going to have to call them companies because that's what HubSpot calls them and you can't rename that object. So this is definitely like the UX side of UX, not UI. It's all about the context of what they knew, what they're coming to, and how to link those things together. So one really important area to customize in HubSpot is the individual record view. So I mean, when you click on a contact and you're looking at that one contact by itself. And in here, we can go through a process of normalization. So augmenting the content to show the properties that they want to see. And then we can also use apps or custom code specific CRM cards that will then surface a little bite-sized piece of information, of really useful information that they want to see about that person. So I know that you obviously work in our marketing team. Is there any kind of example that you can think of some bite-sized area or channel or piece of information that would be helpful to see when you go directly on the contact view?
As for lately, events have become like a really big chunk of our marketing strategy with us doing the growth summit and planning a couple of webinars. So I think as a marketer, it would be really helpful, not just for me, but for the whole, the wider team, if we had like highlighted information about events, and that could include what was the last event they attended, how many events have they registered. So that could be even helpful for like our sales team, helping them with their sales outreach, and they can personalize their outreach as for that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a great example. So what we would do then, understanding that events are a big part of your marketing strategy, is would look at the apps that are available based on the tech that you're already using, and see how we can use that to either create a CRM card that it already works with, or to custom code specific information to display in the center of that record view. So then you can come in and instead of having to go into a third system or second system, or instead of having to hunt through all of their properties, you can just come in and see hey, this person's gone to this many events. Here's a call out of the last event that they went to, and other useful stats like that. Yeah, CRM cards are a really cool feature, and they're really extendable. You can get quite creative with them. I was on LinkedIn the other day and I saw someone had somehow managed to install Mario Kart as a CRM card, so you could
Oh, wow.
literally play the game in HubSpot. I don't know how they did it, but it's definitely possible. And it just That's the sort of thing that showing the information that people want to see, and in little bite-sized pieces of information where they want to see it, is really what UX is all about, and helps users use HubSpot and adopt the system long term.
It never fails to amaze me how much we can do with HubSpot.
Yeah.
It's a platform that just keeps giving.
Yeah, definitely. It just takes a little bit of creative thinking, but you can do so much with it.
You're right. One of my leaders one time said that, like, just from marketing perspective, they were like, "It's not marketing if it does not make you think."
Nice. I like it.
So that's all I had. Thank you so much, Poppy, for sharing all your wisdom.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. And if you all have any questions related to UI, UX, its principles in HubSpot, or anything we spoke about in the video, don't hesitate to contact us, and we'll be back with another Flow Talk video soon. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.